area, and the township was good enough to come and repair that. We had also had the oil company come and repair the valve that actually had cracked and broken that was allowing the water to seep in. 3 different times we had that repaired. There was water that had infiltrated the actual tank that shut down our heating system. So yes, it is, and it, of course, it's inefficient.
Terribly inefficient.
Efficient.
And wouldn't you say that this ongoing repairs are being done this way, not because we're trying to wait for a new library, but that we just are trying to figure out what can go in there? This is a huge undertaking to take this oil tank out of that parking lot.
Absolutely, it's a major undertaking. There is no gas line right now into the library in order to have gas put into the building. So that, yes, when we're looking at things to make it more efficient and making repairs, we're doing that because we need to at this moment.
Okay. Is anyone? Fine, thank you.
Can I ask a question of Ms.
Sure.
Farris? Ms. Farris, with regard to the library's, one of the library's abilities as an organization independent from ours is fundraising. Are there any issues with regard to potential fundraising for the library, depending on the type of structure it builds and whether or not it's partnered up with the township or it stands alone?
Huh?
Do you know?
I have to think about that. We're obviously, if we're doing new construction, we're going to do a capital campaign, whether it's renovation or a new building. Obviously, something to present to any funder or for a capital campaign has to have a concrete plan. So that, yes, we have to have something in place in order to begin any kind of a capital campaign. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I'm just curious. I mean, in evaluating what we can do with the library, one of the things the library has going for it, which the police and the township don't, is that it does have ability to reach into the philanthropic world and try to get assistance in building its library. And I just wondered whether or not the library had evaluated at this point whether or not there is some negative return in terms of fundraising if the library is part of a building or whether it's standalone, and
we have actually not gotten to that point yet because we really do need something concrete in order to proceed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Does anybody come up to the?
I mean, if he can address that question,
Yeah, no, he can. He's gonna. Yeah, he's gonna address the question for you. Blackwell, we just say.
Yes, I'm Christopher Blackwell. I live at 28 Mill Road in Mr. McGarrity's ward, which also contains the library. I'm also proud to be president of the Library Board of Trustees. My background in the United States, I've now been here half my life, has mainly been has been exclusively in the nonprofit sector, in nonprofit management and fundraising. When it comes to fundraising, inspiration is key. You can't go very successfully to donors with emergency needs or anything like that. Frankly, I can't put it in better terms, and it's going to be too wishy-washy for many people in the room, but it's about sizzle on the steak. You can't raise money unless you excite people, unless you inspire people. And so that's the bottom line. The more exciting a case that we can make. If we only have to go to raise money to repair the mechanical systems, well, we'll do that, and we'll be successful. But we're not going to raise a huge amount of money over and above that. And frankly, I have to disagree with some of the opinions expressed so far this evening, that just repairing the mechanical systems or maintaining them is not the answer to the issue. It really isn't at all. So it's about sizzle, and it's about inspiring, and it's about making a really good case. I hope that helps.
Do you know, in your work, I mean, do you deal with the folks in Lower Merion? Any idea how much of the Ludington work was done with endowed money as opposed to a current capital campaign that would have generated some of the money that went into that project?
I happen to know the person who was a consultant, a fundraising consultant for that campaign. And I know that there was a real struggle, actually, to raise all the money that they wanted. But then they were trying to build, excuse my British background, but they were trying to build the crown jewels. And they did feel a little short. And interestingly enough, they also, in many people's opinion, made a miscalculation when it came to parking. They assumed that there would be parking across the street.
Right.
Oh, in Bryn Mawr.
Yeah. So it's a very convoluted situation. Some of the libraries in the system, it's a different system than the Delaware County system to begin with. You've got this central library and a lot of satellites, basically, which is not the case in Delaware County. In Delaware County, all the libraries are independent. They have a relationship with their township, and they all feed into frankly, a communication node. The Delaware County library system is the gateway to all of the solid databases that people can access through their libraries, for instance. So the Ludington campaign was not, the fundraising part of it was not totally successful. But they did have, obviously, enough money to do what they did, and it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the measure of success, I mean, they did raise millions, tens of millions. I mean, do you know?
I don't know the numbers. I really don't. We're not trying to build a Ludington. We're not. We're trying to provide a facility that really serves the citizens of Haverford Township, and some from the surrounding area.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're done with you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Okay, yeah, could Gary come up and address the questions that were asked?
Gary, can you do that for us?
I'll try. Thank you. Raise your right hand. Oh, no, that's another situation. Larry, my commissioner, Larry Holmes, wonderful guy. You weren't able to attend the first part of this meeting where I did speak specifically about the mechanical, electrical, plumbing report that was done last year for the library. So, and just touching on your other point, think about the sizzle that Mr. Blackwell is talking about and trying to raise funds for a part of a building, of a 3-story building, and say, the library's somewhere in there. It's the 2nd floor, 3rd floor, I don't know where. But separately, what I asked is that you look at the actual MEP report that was done. And the $1.5 million that it says to do these repairs are not actually repairs, but brand new systems across the board for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, including a generator and a sprinkler system. So, and that's part of a new renovation if that was to occur at the library. Those are not emergency repairs. Those are not things that have to be done in the next 6 months. If you decided to keep the building for the next 5 years, then yes. But they would never be conceived as a standalone measure just to do $1.5 million of repairs. So I think it's important that we separate that and not bring that into the discussion as an urgent need to do those $1.5 million repairs. So that was the main part of that, is to bring that to light and take a look at the study and read it. It's very clear what it says.
Are some of those things, I mean, do some of those things translate directly into better resaleability of that building if these repairs are done in the next 2 years?
Or just like any other building would eventually. But wanted to caution.
Yeah,
is
I don't mean to cut you off.
These systems, and this report says this very clearly, are viable for this type of use of a building. Now, if you were to sell that building and try to convert it to offices, they may not be any longer, because office use or some other type of use is a completely different thing from a library. So you can't go ahead and do these repairs and then sell the building. You would have to sell the building and try to find a buyer and then account for the repairs.
Well, for instance, I mean, it does not currently have a standalone generating system, and I assume the library, in its goal, wants to operate approximately 16 hours a day, right? Maybe 6 days a week. I mean,
Right,
so
but a
your goal there
generator is not required by law in almost any building, especially a library. They threw that in there when they built the original one as a nice thing to have. That's why when they talked last week about doing $5,000 of repairs to put in emergency lighting and exit signage, those are normally done in buildings. You see, we have them here. But they weren't done in that building because of the emergency generator. But you don't need an emergency generator in a library. It's not
The
required.
people in Coopertown that were 5 days without power, do you think they would have been happy to have a library that had power their kids
Well,
could hang out in?
Yeah, and when I did the fire station.
As a
I did-
rhetorical question, Mr. Bogosian. And changing over from oil to gas, I mean, that's obviously an efficiency that anybody wants to do at any time, right?
Absolutely, and that's the thing to look at is that, people are using subjective terms to describe the inefficiency of the current library, saying it's very inefficient, highly inefficient, we're wasting a lot of money, pouring money down the drain. But what you have to do is actually look at what is the difference of the utility cost now versus the utility cost if the systems were new. And you'd find that it's incremental. It might be 10% more, it might be 15% more, but it's not something to justify alone building a new library or even renovating the library. Just like my house, and your house might be like this, it was built in the 20s. It has no insulation. I'm not going to spend $15,000 or $20,000 to insulate the walls when I'm only going to be spending an extra few $500 a year in heating costs. So
Right.
that's what's not happening is you're not quantifying.
But at the same time,
inefficiencies.
those things can add up. I mean, when you're talking about the when you're ultimately deciding at the margin, you make the decision to do A instead of B. I mean, it's after you've evaluated the 10 reasons why you ought to do A versus the 10 reasons why you ought to do B, and then ultimately they add up and they tip in A's favor. So if you're just talking about an old building and we need to make it modern, is that enough? I don't know. We do the math.
No,
we
it
determine
isn't.
whether or not we can,
Right.
whether or not that's worth it, whether or not retrofitting is sunk costs, whether or not you can ever really get efficiencies maybe out of that building design, out of the windows.
And those are
whatever's
good
there.
questions. But I would say as an architect, I have rescued at least half of the buildings that
Sure.
I've designed.
And I don't mean to
there are
cut
other
you
ones
out.
that
Just,
do
there
it
was
too.
just a little more to that. Add to that the next set of concerns the library might have, which is inside it may be impossible or very expensive to retrofit that for more modern needs, more modern technology, using the stacks differently, perhaps having not roaming stacks, not.
But
the
it's
difference between-
not. But see, that's where I understand the question. But the answer is that it's not. It can be done. They've had architects look at this. They've had engineers look at this. So the answer to your question on a technical level is, yes, you can take the library, you can gut it, you can use the structure, you can use where it is, and you can create a top-notch 21st century facility in the existing location in the shell of the building. That's the answer. That's what people should be telling you. That's how you should be basing your next conclusions. If you want to build a new one, fine, then build it. Do it for the right reasons. But don't do it because you're saying that this one can't be retrofitted into a brand new modern facility. It can.
Well, when we engage in these conversations, obviously a lot of us are prone to using, extreme words, extreme language. So somebody says can't, it may be won't, it may be shouldn't.
Okay.
So as I go through each one of these individual things with you, I will hear from you that, well, that's fixable, that's doable, that does work. I'll hear from somebody else who has obviously the contrary opinion. No, that doesn't work. No, that's not fixable. The point is, in every one of those circumstances, there are reasonable people who believe that retrofitting the building is not worth the money. There are people who believe that modernizing that library on the inside isn't going to be worth the money. There are people who believe that you can never address the parking situation in that neighborhood.
That's
and that
fine.
parking
All-
situation
yeah.
is much greater than
Right.
just those 12 spots. It's,
All of what you said is
we have
absolutely
stickered
true.
parking. People don't want the schools parking there. People don't want the businesses parking there. So we also have that systemic issue. So the bottom line is, each one of these things create, you know, are another marginal cost that we fit into the scale as to whether or not this is the right
Make
thing
the
to
judgment.
do.
That's your
Yeah.
guy's job. I'm only asking you on this one segment, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems report that was done, quoting $1.5 million. I'm asking you to read it and to understand that that's for brand new portions of the facility. Absolutely brand new, not renovations on their own as part of a fully renovated library. Either take it or don't take it. But I'm asking you not to say that the library needs $1.5 million over the next year to sustain itself. It doesn't. That's not what that report says.
Okay.
Okay.
But
So
to do the
that's
things
my
the
point.
library, do the things that the library ought to do. For instance, you said to stay 5 years. Those are things that easily add up to that number or more. Converting from gas to oil, you're not going to do with used equipment. That's going to be a new system.
You're not going to do it if you're not going to stay there. That's what all of that comes to, is you're not going to do those things in that report unless you're going to stay there. If you're going to leave, you're not going to do those. You're going to still put the Band-Aids on them. And yes, you're going to pay more for the Band-Aids over year after year. But your idea is that you're after 3 years or 2 years or 4 years, whatever the program you pick in the timetable, that those no longer are going to be applied because you're going to be either renovated or a new facility.
But would you agree with me that repairs we're talking about there, those kinds of repairs, structural repairs to that building are good, whether or not we do them after we've agreed to sell it or before we've agreed to sell it? Those things translate to a much better sale price for that building.
And again, as I said earlier, I would qualify that because if you're going to use it for something different than a library, then no, they would not. You would not do those repairs if you're going to sell it for some other use besides an institutional use like the library.
Because if you
because-
add, like Gary's saying, if you add those, if you change it to offices, then your requirements for your
The
you know, for air
mechanicals,
handlers,
electricals,
everything is
plumbing,
different.
everything's going to be different.
So you have to gut the building, so why would you?
Well, you're going to convert from oil to gas. You're going to convert from
Right.
oil to gas, which everybody's going to do.
Okay, right. So you
Number
put a
two,
gas line in, but-
if you're going to properly put enough electricity and enough bandwidth into that building, whether or not you divide it into 60 offices or one library,
Well,
you certainly
yes and
want
no,
significant
Right,
improvements.
but that's the cart before the horse. You've got to get someone to buy the building and know what it's going to be before you decide. And usually, like renovating a house, you don't want to redo your kitchen the year you're going to sell it because the next guy coming in may hate your idea of a kitchen.
Yeah, but if
So
my
it's the
wife
same
has
kind of
said,
thing.
I don't want this kitchen anymore, and we're not going to sell it for maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years,
You go ahead
then
and
I
invest
go ahead
it.
and
Right,
fix
it's
the
a very
kitchen, or
good
at least spend the
analogy.
money that's necessary.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I have to stay for 20 to put up with a crappy kitchen with a
That's true too. Right.
50s Formica countertop.
I'm saying you don't want to spend
Larry, are you selling your house?
So I took out of it, you're selling your house, right?
marble, nice granite or something like
So
that.
I guess, no, I appreciate, and I am sorry I missed your earlier provision. I was indisposed, but but I do appreciate your point, and I do. I mean, what I was getting at last week during the work session is that no matter what we do with the library has immediate needs now that everybody has to recognize, have to be dealt with, and those needs can translate to better resaleability of that building if we move them out of that library, and just a better library in the meanwhile.
Yes,
so it's
but
that
what I'm saying
kitchen
is
you'd
that-
like to live in, even if you're not going to live there
But please make sure
forever.
you understand, it's not $1.5 million. It's not those items that are in that report. What you just said is true, but it's not that. So if it's fixing a leak, if it's fixing a particular problem, yes, all of that should be done when it can be. It will help the resale eventually, but not the wholesale MEP report of all brand-new systems for $1.5 million. Do not do that unless you're going to stay. Just look at the report, and I'll be happy to go into it more detail for you.
No, I appreciate the info. Thank you.
Hey, anyone else have questions for?
About
Forget?
that? Okay, thank you.
They-
Thank
they-
you for your indulgence.
They made you Dr. Bogosian, I heard. Yeah.
All right, Larry, can I ask you, Larry, a couple of questions, just 2 questions. Number one,
You can speak after the meeting's over.
number one was the Grange Estate and Nider Hall, the Torrey House, the 5 fire companies, Manoa, Brookline, Lenart, Bonaire, and Oakmont. Okay, all those totals, do they come up to what we give the library, $1,080,000 a year? those totals, would they match that or be more than that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Okay. 1,080,000 goes to the library each year from us. And my question is, Grange Estate, the Tory House, not the Tory House, the school, the school up on Darby Road, the Grange Estate.
You mean the federal school?
The federal school. And the Grange Estate and Nider Hall and the 5 fire companies, with the grant money that we give them, does that total more than the $1,080,000?
We have to figure that out, Jim.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact
well, I can tell
number.
you, no, it doesn't. I couldn't give you the exact figure, but I know
Yeah.
for the 5 fire companies, we give about $250,000 a year. We roughly $63,000.
63,000 a year.
And
That's in the
no,
budget
we
every
wouldn't
year.
give
64, 128, 256, and 64 is
that.
270,
I would see somewhere in the area.
330, 330,000.
300,000.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about I would say that's oranges and apples.
Yeah, I think so.
Then the second question, Larry, is the library had just stated all these things that need to be done at the library. Now, out of the 1,080,000, have you given them, or do you agree with them that all these problems still exist, or have you helped fix some of those problems presently?
Some of the major problem that the library was experiencing for a long time was the water problem,
Right.
which is pretty substantial, and we did get that addressed.
That's been fixed.
That's been fixed. There's been some minor cosmetic issues that we've been working with them. We continue to work with them. And Mr. Bogosian mentioned about the emergency generator. I know that was a request, and I denied that. We don't have emergency generators in a majority of our buildings, including the rec center. So that's something I did deny, but I try to address as the majority of their concerns. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I ask a question.
Yeah, sure, Commissioner.
So are we voting this on this in September? We are.
Yes, currently.
On the
What-
municipal
what'd you say,
facilities.
Steve?
Are we voting on this in September again?
It'll be
right?
on the agenda. I'll
Okay.
just put it
On the
that way.
agenda.
So are we going to have another meeting regarding it, or maybe a special meeting to present the 7 options again, or
Seven
is that too
options
much? I'm just throwing it out there.
The 7 options were already presented.
Okay.
There's
But-
one more work session, though. so.
Yeah, we can present them at the next work session if they like, but they've already been
Well, that's fine.
presented to the.
You know, I don't want anyone to say that, you know what, it's, let's put it out there again. Let's put it out in our newsletters. We've been transparent. I'm not saying we're not. This board has been very
It's on the-
transparent.
it
In
is
fact,
on- if
the
anybody
property
has-
committee has been.
Anybody watching,
But-
it's on our website. So you can go to the website, it has all.
I'm saying,
all
let's say it
the-
again, put it out there,
It is 7, right?
show it again.
Yes, 7.
7. I don't know if we, wasn't there? Okay,
No, there
anyway.
were 7.
I thought there was an 8th.
No, there were 7.
7, okay. 7 scenarios are out there. So you can go to the website and view them at any time. Stop by the Township Building if you want to see a physical copy of it. We have them here. And then we'll present them again if you'd like. Be glad to, at the work session.
Right across the top of the homepage of the township website, in bright red.
You can go to the library too, right? Look, I see them out there in the audience. Yes, you can go to the library and they have a copy of that, or you can get on the internet at the library. If you
Oh,
need
yeah,
to.
I'm just saying the goal is that when we vote in September, I don't want anyone to say that we haven't. And there's 7 options and no one knows about it, whatever. Everyone needs to know, as by any means necessary, to get it out, even in our email blast, to do it.
I know, I don't want to, maybe it's inappropriate time, Mr. Leader, but if I may, I know Mr. Bogosian brought up a request to put this out on and I'm going to defer to this board, but I just want to give you my opinion. That's not what the emergency notification system is for.
Oh, I agree.
I am not in support of it, but if this board wants me to do that, and we've been notifying through commissioner newsletters, the township newsletters, the cable, the webpage, other than knocking on people's doors, but I am.
It is on the web, it's on the
And
community
it will
channel.
be included, I believe, in the printed newsletter that is going out shortly. It's, I believe, on page either 3 or 5 of that newsletter, so it's everywhere, and that newsletter goes to every residential address.
They're going out.
very shortly
week.
because
Next
it's,
week.
there's some timely information in it. So, yeah.
I think it's August
That's good.
22nd.
September the 2nd, I
That's
believe,
the key.
Tuesday, September the 2nd is the work session.
It's in there.
And then,
The newsletter itself is going to go out at the beginning of September.
I believe so, it's been finalized.
Yep, all finalized. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, now that that's done, you want to answer the questions from the
There's nothing else.
public?
It was all
Well,
library.
I think majority
all-
of their questions were addressed. I mean, everyone's comments
Discussion.
are due, I
The-
think Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Bogosian, the pilot program that you spoke about, we're working on doing something like that. We can't force any non-for-profit because we can't tax a non-profit. It's against federal law for us to do so, but we are encouraging them, reaching out to them and trying to do whatever we can to offset any tax increases that may happen. So we're doing everything we can.
And Gary also mentioned about the second trash collection. I think we're real close to it, Mr. Bogosian. We can get our residents to participate in the yard waste has doubled since we've changed it to Mondays. I know it's a drastic change, but I think we are very, very close to it. So I think by the time we finalize the proposed 2015 budget, I think we're real close to it.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
want me to go on?
Yes. Go ahead.
Approval of minutes, regular meeting of July 14th, 2014. Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 14th, 2014.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
I was not here, so I'm going to have to
You're going to
recuse
abstain?
myself.
Okay.
Mrs.
Duly
Hall,
noted.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel,
Yes.
Mr. Holmes,
Yes.
Mr. McGarity,
Yes.
Mr. Connell.
Yes.
Mr. Wexler. Yes. Mr. Heilman.
Yes.
And Mr. Oliva.
Yes. Number 7, approval of warrants. Commissioner Holmes.
Oh, yes, excuse me.
I have a written copy.
I have it right here. Mr. President, I move we approve warrant number 8 of 2014 totaling $3,761,690.72, comprising the general and sewer fund payroll for July 3rd, 2014 in the amount of $610,672.35, the general and sewer fund payroll for July 17, 2014 in the amount of $659,160.84, the general and sewer fund payroll for July 31, 2014 in the amount of $1,049,000. I'm sorry, I got that one wrong. In the amount of $635,222.99. The general fund disbursement number 8 of 2014 in the amount of $1,049,075.42. The sewer fund disbursements number 8 of 2014 in the amount of $232,671.18. Community Development Block Grant Fund disbursement number 8 of 2014 in the amount of $43,008.29. The Capital Access Equipment Fund number 8 of 2014 in the amount of $446.19. Capital Projects Fund disbursement number 8, 2014 in the amount of $520,832.88. And credit card statement ending July 6, 2014 in the amount of $10,600.58.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. President, our auditor has been through these disbursements and I believe has raised any questions that they raised with our finance director, and I believe those questions have been answered to his satisfaction. He could certainly tell me to the contrary.
No, he
Hearing
reported.
nothing, there is nothing to the contrary. I do recommend that we, and I would note, the credit card statement is larger than sometimes usual. It is that time of the year where a number of things need to be purchased in advance by the rec department. That is what it uses the credit card statement for. It is always paid in full. We carry no finance charges on the credit card statement, and there are just times where it is necessary for us to front the costs of things that are ultimately paid back through the program participants. I recommend we approve this warrant.
All right. That being said, any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Heilman?
Yes.
Mr. Lubin?
Yes. Ordinance number P10, 2014.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the, let's see, this is, it says here this is a second reading, but it says down here the first
First
reading.
reading.
It needs to be changed.
Okay, for the first reading on P10, 2014, establishing traffic restrictions on the following roadway. This is for handicap parking in front of 178 Juniper Road.
This is the second reading.
This is the, yeah,
This is the second
that's the
reading.
second reading for it.
I
so-
know,
Why don't
because of Decatur.
This needs to be changed.
we can reread, why don't we,
This is the
Well,
second
just-
reading. It's the
It's a
same motion.
typo,
Yeah.
it's a typo, and we'll just
the
change it.
typo, just reread it. Go ahead.
Just rereading the second reading.
Make a motion to adopt the second reading of ordinance number P10, 2014, establishing traffic restrictions on the following highways. Establish special parking zone in front of 178 Juniper Road. Sticker parking only the 700 block of Powder Mill Lane from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Monday to Friday. Parking of vehicles prohibited at all times, the following locations. The south side of Decatur Road from Darby Road to a point 55 feet east. The west side of Myrtle Road from East Manila Road to a point 20 feet south. The north side of Heatherwood Road from Manila Road to the driveway leading to 427 Heatherwood Road. The south side of Heatherwood Road from the crosswalk at Manila Road to a point 30 feet east. The north side of Ralston Avenue from Belvedere Avenue to the dead end.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Just for verification, this is second reading, correct?
Second reading, yes,
Okay,
second reading.
just to make sure,
Yeah.
okay.
There's a typo on the agenda.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mr. Heilman?
Yes.
Mr. Lubin?
Yes. Number 9, ordinance number P11, 2014. Commissioner Hall?
Mr. President, motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number P11, 2014 by amending Chapter 58, Building Construction, Section 58-2, additions, deletions, and modifications by modifying the provisions for curb replacement.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess from what I could tell, the only thing we were changing was that
The height?
the height remained consistent on each property.
Correct.
Correct.
Is that correct? Because I wasn't here last week when they discussed this. So we won't have any more of those, like the tumors almost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
that pop up.
Teal.
Yeah.
Pick a different one.
And I think to Mr. Bogosian's point, this is a work in progress, and we'll constantly be looking at it and making sure that we're addressing things in the future. But for now, it's to get a consistency within the curbing within the township on
So-
replacement.
So basically, I guess the inspectors will have a little bit more leeway on this then? with-
It's more about consistency upon replacement. That if you have two pieces of curbing on either side of a piece that needs to be replaced, that the piece that's replaced will be replaced at the same height as the adjacent pieces. So it's consistent.
Can I just ask for clarification, though, now? It's, the reveal
Still 4.
is 4 inches, not,
Well,
I thought we were going 3.5.
yeah,